But Putin's guns are far from silent. Air raids, missiles, rain misery on Kharkiv, capital Kyiv witnesses barrage of rocket strikes for the fourth day running. Hopes of diplomacy between Russia and Ukraine rise amidst the devastation. Putin claims success after Ukraine's NATO shift. International Court of Justice orders Russia to stop the invasion. President Zelensky calls it a big win. Truce on the horizon after 3 weeks of a devastating military operation. Russia and Ukraine zero in on 15-point peace plan. India Today decodes the 10 possible outcomes of this war. "26-year-old Ukrainian MP Yurash loses his girlfriend in Russian shelling, speaks exclusively to India Today, narrates his heartbreaking ordeal, a story that's gone viral.
She didn't have a chance there. There was direct artillery hit on the car that she was in. So the point is that that's the way that Russians killed her.
Children bear the cost of the Russian invasion, war creating a child refugee every second. At least 1 million children have fled Ukraine in the last 3 weeks. Since the beginning of this invasion of Ukraine, intermittently, you've seen fuzzy video footage of drone strikes taking place in different parts of Ukraine. Drones with their cameras switched on, recording the pulverization and destruction of different targets, whether they're Ukrainian or Russian, using combat drones. These are armed drones that loiter in the air, acquire their targets, and then dive out of the sky and hit them. Or there are hunter-killer drones which are flying around like aircraft and launch bombs or laser-guided munitions directly at their targets, while all at the same time watching and recording that destruction, as you can see in some of the videos on your screen. None of the videos you see on your screen are made up. They're not fabricated. Those are all drone strikes caught on drone camera. And now, to counter the Russian drones that are hitting some of their targets, Ukraine is about to receive consignments of American-made Switchblade drones. These are small little drones that can be carried in backpacks and launched with devastating effect against small targets, including tanks, including vehicles, large numbers of which the Russians have already sent into Ukraine. These drones carry warheads that detonate on impact. Could this be a game changer and a step forward in what has been a week of heavy drone warfare?
Ukraine standing up to Moscow's offensive despite weeks of ravaging assault, showing unparalleled courage and spirit rarely seen in recent times. Showing it can be a match to Moscow's superior military might and far sophisticated weaponry. But Russia, on its part, has been using stealthy suicide drones to attack the Ukrainian army. These unmanned drones, evading radar and traditional air defense system, can slip past enemy line of fire. This devil in the sky is lethal, using loitering munitions which wait passively in the air, hovering over the target before coming down in one deathly swoop. The drone falls head first along a vertical trajectory similar to kamikazes, a Japanese aircraft loaded with explosives, and making a deliberate suicidal crash on an enemy target. Russia is using these drones to make precision attacks on military targets in Ukraine. Each of them packs a small explosive charge up to 3 kgs. Targets are fed into the drone or through an image uploaded on its control system. The drone then finds its target and drops itself to blow the target into smithereens. These loitering munition drones are multi-purpose and used as part of a swarm of drones, flying silently as fast as 130 km/h with a flight duration of 30 minutes. To counter Russian depth drones, the US is now supplying Ukraine with Switchblade drones, which works in similar kamikaze fashion. The small drones, made by AeroVironment Ammunition Major, carrying warhead, detonate on impact.   ;  'Bureau Report, India Today.
「 India Today」 India Today 」 India Today」 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 India Okay, let's show you now what these drones actually look like. Let's show you for a moment what these drones actually look like. Washington is now sending US-made kamikaze drones, also dubbed suicide or killer drones, to war-hit Ukraine as part of a $1 billion security assistance package to the war-torn country. Now, what are kamikaze drones? They're a kind of drone. It's not a name of a drone. Why are they considered, possible game changers? Why is it being seen that these suicide drones, could turn the tide of a numerically inferior battle opponent? These are super stealthy unmanned drones, small little vehicles. They carry a big explosive warhead that can, create an impact far bigger than its size can suggest. Able to evade air defense, slips past enemy lines because, like I said, they're very, very small little drones. They can be carried in backpacks. They seek out targets. They have autonomous computers. They can be pre-programmed with coordinates, hunt, kill, dive out of the sky and hit. They can hover over a target and basically wait and lurk around, loiter around for an opportune moment, and then they hit that target, exploding in what is called a suicide strike. They can be also used in swarm mode. Hundreds of these drones can be deployed at the same time in order to somehow overwhelm military or vehicular columns of the kind that Russia has been sending. These drones have a top speed of about 130 kilometers per hour with a payload of about 3 kilograms. So a sizable little warhead with, with sensors on board as well. They have a flight duration of about 30 minutes. That's very, very healthy. Can cover many kilometers in that time to actually hit a target. So those are the kinds of drones that Ukraine is currently getting in order to strike Russian targets. Now, how do you fight a superpower which is out to annihilate you? You do what Ukraine is doing with killer precision, using whatever it possibly can to take out these approaching Russian convoys. Enter the super lethal, super silent Bayraktar drones. These are Turkish drones that were supplied to Ukraine back in 2019. And along with the switchblade drones that are being sent to Ukraine now by the United States, Ukraine has been using the Bayraktar drones supplied by Turkey to devastating effect, or at least that's what Ukraine suggests. Remember, it's not a one-way street. Russia has been mounting drone strike after drone strike as well.
Perhaps the most compelling aerial image of Ukraine's counter-strike on its invaders. Look carefully at these infrared images. What you're looking at is a Russian missile position being struck from the skies by a Ukrainian drone. The drone said to be raining this hell on Russian forces is the Bayraktar TB2, a combat drone fleet supplied by Turkey in 2019. These drones carry 4 laser-guided missiles that have proven highly effective in combat. The TB2 has a flight time of 24 hours and a communication range of almost 185 miles, with a service altitude ceiling of roughly 25,000 feet. Additionally, some of these drones create a disturbing sound when approaching their targets, which can be psychologically unsettling. The chief of Ukraine's Air Force, Lieutenant General Mykola Oleshchuk, describes the Bayraktar TB2 drones as life-giving. Each Bayraktar TB2 system consists of 6 aerial vehicles, 2 ground control stations, 3 ground data terminals, 2 remote video terminals, and ground support equipment. Bayraktar TB2 UAV can carry a maximum payload of more than 55 kilos. The standard payload configuration includes an electro-optical camera module, an infrared camera module, a laser designator, a laser range finder, and a laser pointer. Ukraine is the latest instance of these formidable attack drones in action. Bayraktar TB2 drones were heavily effective for Azerbaijan against Armenia in November 2002, as testified by multiple videos that emerged at that time. A precursor to this was the success of the TB2 drones against Russian-made weapons in Syria and Libya. Key aspects like low visibility and detectability thanks to the low radar cross-section makes this drone slick and agile. It is interesting to note that earlier this year, Turkey and Ukraine had an agreement in place to co-produce Bayraktar TB2 drones at a production site in Ukraine. Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov told reporters in Kiev that the co-production compound would also include a training center where Ukrainian pilots would be trained. This had caused a lot of resentment and anger amongst the Russian defense establishment back then. And with the drones striking Russian targets once again now, expect things to escalate further from the air. With Sai Kiran Kannan in Singapore, Bureau Report, India Today.
I want to go across now to two Indian Army combat veterans that understand the way this war is moving in Ukraine at this point of time. They understand the technology that is being used and they understand the impact that some of these technologies could possibly have. We have with us Rajesh Pawar, who's a Special Forces veteran of the Indian Army. He's live with us from Kyiv. Major Samarthur is a sniper and urban warfare expert. He's been a UN peacekeeper as well. They both join me live. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with me here on India Today. Rajesh, coming to you first, since you're in Ukraine still, one of the few journalists still reporting from Kyiv at this point of time. The news about drones, Rajesh, is interesting. In the recent past, in just the last couple of years, we've seen the very, very effective, very impactful, aftermath of the use of drones. In the Russia-Ukraine crisis over the last few days especially, there have been a multiplicity of inputs and videos of drone strikes, flowing from both sides. And now we hear that there are new US drones also coming in for the Ukrainians to use, these kamikaze drones. How, first, assess for us the use of drones so far in this conflict from your view, Rajesh.
Look, Shiv, drones have been a game changer. If you remember the recent war which happened, the Azerbaijan and Armenian war, drones were the game changer. The drones supplied to Azerbaijan by Turkey changed the course of war completely, and Armenia had to give up. They had to come to the negotiating table and had to accept what Azerbaijan had to offer. Same thing is happening in this war. Drones are being used by both the sides in a big way.
Yes.
And now new American drones are being supplied to Ukraine. These are like suicide drones. They have a small payload on top. They can carry up to 1 kilogram of payload. And they just hover around in the area, look at the target, identify the target, and just go and hit the target and destroy it. And they can be game changers really in this war. And a large number of these drones have been supplied by America to Ukraine in the last few days, and new supplies are coming in every day as we talk. Shiv.
Major Samar, how do you see this? Like Rajesh says, we've seen drones of a very similar kind being used to devastating effect in the Armenia-Azerbaijan war, just a couple of years ago. There is an increasing and visible use of drones, attack drones, hunter-killer drones, as well as these kamikaze drones here. Some of them are very, very small. They can be carried in backpacks. They can be deployed with hardly any logistical footprint whatsoever. Frontline special forces, infantry troops can easily deploy these to devastating effect. How do you see this, Major Tur?
Shiv and Rajesh, sir, basically to begin with, I want to bring out a very surprising fact that probably the world is not aware of much as of now. Basically, the creator of Bayraktar TB2 drone is Selçuk Bayraktar. Now, this individual was born on 7th October 1979. He's done his graduation from the United States from Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So this individual's father-in-law is today's Turkish Prime Minister, Erdogan. So basically, he had set up a drone industry named Baykar, B-A-Y-K-A-R, Baykar Industries, for setting up of these nano drones. So as a result, he got a project approval from the Turkish government through the Prime Minister of Turkey. And there was full expertise and manpower and the brain put into creating such a lethal drone, which is actually become the mainstay of any battle. Azerbaijan and Armenia had the dispute of land since 1988. But within 44 days, Azerbaijan was able to solve this issue by use of drones.
Yes.
Armenian army was getting inputs like within 8 minutes, they were getting inputs at various locations amounting to hundreds of casualties of the soldiers.
Yes.
So basically, in today's age of warfare, drone has become a needle in the sky, which is so lethal that once it strikes, there is no tracking it. It is made up of composite material, number one. Number two, there are different types of drones. There are micro drones, there are nano drones, there are small tactical drones, there are medium range reconnaissance drones. And now the latest concept which is going to come in the future is going to be mother drones with small tactical drones.
Yes.
That means one mother drone is able to carry approximately 10 to 15 drones with it. And those small drones would be at least armed with 2 to 4 bombs each.
Yes.
So it is going to be a plethora of artillery shells, but the difference is they have wings, they have a direction, and they have a guidance system as to where it is going to go and hit. So you can run, you can hide, but you cannot escape from them. Be it you are in the trenches, you are in the buildings, or you are at any particular
Rajesh, these drones are, increasingly intelligent. They are able to, loiter for extended periods of time. Since you brought up the Armenia-Azerbaijan war, even there we saw, a numerically and less equipped force being able to, in many ways, give a good fight, if not turn the tables of that conflict with the concerted use of these drones. Do you think that's possibly something that's happening here or could happen, Rajesh?
Not as much as it influenced the course of war in Azerbaijan and Armenia. It won't be that much because both sides are technologically much more superior than probably the two sides we're talking about, Azerbaijan and Armenia. These Ukrainian army and Russian army is much more sophisticated, has much more sophisticated technology than that. But yes, there is no doubt that drones have been game changer in that war, and they are likely to be game changer in this war as well. And that is the reason after Russia has been using its suicide drones on Ukraine targets, Ukrainian authorities pleaded with America, and America is now supplying these drones, which are, as brought out, very small drones. They carry a payload up to 1 hour, 1 kg, and they can stay in an area, can hover around in an area for hours, waiting for the target. These targets can be laser illuminated, or it can be fed into the memory of the drones. And the moment they recognize the target, they go and just dive into it and destroy it. And they they blast on impact, and the target is destroyed. So these are very, very efficient and low cost technology now to destroy tanks or armored carrier personnel, which cost a lot of money. And you see the course of war, the way war has been fought. We have been thinking about war. It was fought in 20th century, but in 21st century, the armored on which there was so much of reliance, be it in India, Pakistan, or be it in other Asian countries, things have changed now. The reliance on armored is not so much, and the air power along with drones is the future, whichever side will have a stronger technology in these two fields probably will dominate the battlefield.
And that appears to be the case. Major Samar, one final question to you is, you've been an urban warfare specialist. You've operated in hostile environments just like Rajesh has as a Special Forces officer. Major Tur, how did you have access to this kind of technology when you were a soldier? And if not, I'm sure looking at all these weapons now, you must be thinking, I wish we had such systems. They would have made many, many things much easier.
We have been utilizing the drones, basically for surveillance and reconnaissance. And as far as the close combat was concerned, where we used to corner in the terrorists, we used these drones. Earlier, it used to be the choppers or the helicopters hovering over, and they used to give us guidance, and even they had extreme threat from terrorist fire. So as a result, the last operation that I had conducted was in 2018, in which I had participated, and it was with the help of drone that we were able to track 3 Jaish-e-Mohammed hardcore terrorists, and we could actually eliminate them before the last light. So basically, drones are definitely a very efficient equipment which are going to change the face of war. And it is basically now a contactless war.
Right.
You're not going to see the enemy, but it is going to strike. Now, the most amazing part is any armored brigade or regiment moving in for attack, its turret cannot move beyond a particular limit.
Absolutely.
In the elevation point of view. So all the drones which are there, for them, armored columns are sitting ducks. They are going to be taken out one by one.
Yeah.
And there's going to be utter chaos and confusion. So this is definitely coming out to be, you could say, amongst the top attack weapons or shells.
Yeah.
From that point of view, it is something like death from above in a very stealthy manner, which is not recognizable by radar,
True.
which is not detectable, which is not visible, and you have no reaction time to get away from it.
It's just, these tiny little things. I want to emphasize once again so our viewers get that straight. These are not, big room-filling drones. The switchblades that the Ukrainians are going to be getting from the United States are small drones that can fit into military-style backpacks, very much the kind of backpacks that Rajesh and Samar would have carried during their, combat missions as well. So these are game changers. Low investment, low cost, low logistics, easy to operate, easy to program, easy to deploy, and devastating effect. That's the key here, and it could see greater usage going forward. Rajesh and Samar, Honor, thank you very much for getting us your viewpoint of this. It's always so good to have former soldiers speak about how this entire crisis is unfolding. Now, the Russia-Ukraine war has been raging for over 3 weeks now. We're on day 22. Moscow continues to fire missiles into Ukraine. Outmanned and outgunned, Kyiv is still holding its guard. While diplomatic talks are on, the world is now asking, how will this war end? Well, there are 10, not 1 or 2, 10 possible scenarios in which things may actually come to an end. Here's how it is.
3 weeks and peace is still a distant dream in Ukraine. Cities continue to be bombarded relentlessly by Russian missiles. As the humanitarian crisis deepens, India today decodes the 10 possible scenarios in which the war could end. Scenario 1. Putin bombs Ukraine into submission at a massive human cost and installs a puppet government in Kyiv. Scenario 2. Zelensky is forced to quit and a new government takes over in Ukraine. Scenario 3. Kyiv is made neutral, irrespective of who rules it, or Ukraine is demilitarized like Austria. Scenario 4. Putin is forced to halt what he calls military operations with altered status quo, allowing talks and diplomacy to take effect. Scenario 5. Ukraine is forced to recognize the 2 breakaway regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, as well as Kherson, as independent regions captured by Russian forces. Scenario 6. Putin escalates war by using chemical weapons or targeting West's arms depots in neighboring Poland, prompting NATO to get involved in the war directly. Scenario 7. Putin scales back his goals in the face of a crumbling domestic economy, and Ukraine becomes what Afghanistan was to Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev, or the US and its allies after 2001. Scenario 8. Ukraine registers an unlikely heroic victory with continued little weapon support and humanitarian aid supplies from the West. Scenario 9. Sanctions by the West cripple Russia's economy, making Putin extremely unpopular, leading to an uprising in his country or even a coup taking place. Scenario 10. Cornered by NATO and the European Union and depleted of weaponry, a frustrated Putin goes for nuclear strikes, potentially leading to World War III and widespread catastrophe. Bureau Report, India Today.
Back after 30 seconds after these messages, but these 6 images on day 22 of the war depict the way things are going. Does it look like things are calming down? Does it look like a compromise is on the horizon? Well, there is possibly a diplomatic escape route from what's happening. But meanwhile, this is what day 22 in Ukraine looks like.
Crypto Watch brought to you by BitBNS.
As Russia declared war on Ukraine, as the world was plunged again into crisis, with the only Indian team in the real war zone.
This is Mariupol. You hear a series. Hear this sound.
I will show you a quick, so to say, bombshell room tour.
I can smell the gunpowder in the air.
And without pause, India Today totally dominates viewership and smashes the competition. When it's the world's biggest news story, there's only one gold standard of journalism.
You are watching
share your home address if you knew your life was in danger? Well, that would be usually someone's normal response, except for Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, who did quite the opposite. Have a look here as to how he's spelling out his address despite surviving 3 assassination attempts.
Залишаюсь у Києві, на Банковій, не ховаючись і нікого не боюсь.
The assassination plans were thwarted after anti-war Russians leaked intel to Ukraine. And guess what? This information came from Russia's Federal Security Service, who by the looks of it does not want blood on their hands at least. Now coming back to Zelensky, who was behind the assassination attempts? One is a Kremlin-backed Wagner group who were behind 2 of the 3 attacks, and the others are Chechen special forces. Zelensky dodged this one when an attempt was made by them on the outskirts of Kiev. And if this happens, fingers will obviously be pointed at Moscow. And if the assassination succeeds, Ukraine will be under dismay with its head of state gone. So, in case Ukraine's charismatic leader is taken out, the Ukraine government has a contingency plan in place. Although the plan was not spelt out for obvious reasons, Ukrainians will ensure that there is continuity of the government one way or the other. This news comes after United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken had said, and I quote, "The Ukrainians have plans in place that I'm not going to talk about or get into any details on to make sure that there is what we would call continuity of government one way or the other." And let me leave it at that. Zelensky has been on the front lines, never been behind any covers, but his leadership nonetheless has been instrumental in inspiring Ukrainians to fight back. Although a plan is in place, his departure would surely cause panic and demotivate Ukrainians. Moreover, there might be Russian-backed lobbying of placing a pro-Russian leader, Viktor Yanukovych, in place. Viktor Yanukovych is a controversial figure and former president of Ukraine who was ousted from Ukraine in 2014. He took refuge in Russia after he was found guilty of treason by a Ukrainian court. The possibilities are only endless, and Moscow will leave no stone unturned to get their demands met, even if it means to be manufactured through assassination.
You are watching India Today.
After 22 days of military operation and this invasion of Ukraine, the world is asking, will Putin and Zelensky come face to face at any time in the future? Can Putin and Zelensky meet and end this war? Will it take a face-to-face meeting between both these leaders, as many in Ukraine have suggested, to actually bring this horrifying ordeal in Ukraine to an end? Do these two world leaders need to meet face-to-face, if necessary behind closed doors, and thrash out what is a situation that has become far bigger than just a Russia-Ukraine crisis? That's the question we're asking. Do these two world leaders have some kind of a compromise formula? Russia has rejected any possibility of a peace deal being agreed upon or even on the table. But there is an air of compromise, especially on the side of Ukraine. Will it lead to anything, is the question we're asking. And will these two leaders come face to face? Now, the Russia-Ukraine war has been on for 3 weeks and counting. Putin's machines are continuing to rain shells and missiles over Kyiv. Residential areas battered, bloodied, bruised. Kyiv is still standing and fighting back. Now, while diplomatic talks are on, the world is asking, who will blink first in this conflict? Now, here are Putin's conditions. Condition number 1, in case the leaders ever get to actually sit like this face to face, adopt a neutral status. On the other hand, Zelensky's demand first is, end this war, only then we can actually talk about what those conditions are. Putin's condition number 2, he says, limit your armed forces. You can't have such big armed forces. Limit them. Zelensky's demand is, we need security guarantees and sovereignty. Anything less than that, we will have to maintain such large armed forces for Ukraine. Putin's condition number 3, renounce all your ambitions to join NATO. Now, this condition has practically been met by Ukraine, because Zelensky has said not once, not twice, but 3 times that joining NATO doesn't appear to be on the horizon for Ukraine. He says, but Zelensky says, you have to restore our territorial integrity, which means get all your armed forces out of Ukraine immediately. Stop this war, stop this invasion, then we will talk about NATO. Putin's condition number 4, stop hosting foreign military bases. Don't give so much of access to foreign countries, especially countries from the NATO and the United States. Zelensky says it's for the protection of Ukraine. It's because you're attacking my country. It's because you're invading my country that we are seeking the help of the West in terms of bases, whether it is in terms of weapons, whether it is in terms of support. But the question is, will these two leaders come face to face and talk some of those things that their foreign ministers are engaging on? It's day 22 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. 3 weeks on, the country has seen unprecedented death and destruction on its once bustling streets. Kharkiv, the second largest city of Ukraine, has been the worst hit, and Russia continues its attacks in Mariupol, in the east, where a bomb shelter was attacked. Ukrainians have put up exceptional resistance to this invasion. Ukraine is showing unmatched fighting spirit. The question is, for how long?
Markets on fire. Schools shelled. Back-to-back strikes. Ukraine continues to face the unsparing onslaught by Putin's army. As Russia continues its invasion, there's bloodbath on the streets of Kyiv, Kharkiv, Mariupol, and many other cities and towns spread across Ukraine. The second biggest city of Kharkiv paints a picture of destruction. Airstrikes that rocked marketplaces left buildings on fire, smoldering and charred. The relentless attacks by Putin's forces didn't even spare schools. Plumes of smoke were seen emerging from a school that lies in ruins and totally devastated. Another badly hit city, Mariupol, has bodies lying on the streets. Target of multiple daily attacks, the city witnessed massive strike on a drama theatre where hundreds of civilians had taken shelter. The sprawling building was reduced to a pile of debris with hundreds trapped. As the Russian army advances towards the capital, attacks on Kyiv's suburbs continue. Residential buildings were seen on fire, with locals struggling to flee using destroyed bridges. Casualties continue to rise.
The Russian state has become an outspoken terrorist, and it is not ashamed. But it will be responsible for everything. The world is already beginning to understand that without the recognition of Russia as a terrorist state, it will be impossible to restore justice for Ukraine. It will be impossible to restore international order.
Today, another apartments building.
Boxing legend and Kyiv mayor Vitaly Klitschko didn't mince words, saying Russia is ruthlessly attacking civilians and not just military establishments.
Putin says he's only targeting military targets.
Bullshit. Sorry. Where is military target? This building is military target.
It's day 22 of the invasion, and Russia continues to attack cities, causing heavy damage. The city of Kharkiv continues to be worst hit. A market in Kharkiv was bombed, following which the fire raged on for hours, with smoke engulfing the nearby buildings as well.
Sviatslav Yurash, who was earlier seen taking up a gun against Russian forces, suffered a massive personal tragedy as he lost his girlfriend Alexandra in a Russian attack.
She will remain that voice which will be speaking to the world every single day from now on.
This hospital in Mariupol is the last one standing in the ruined city, with all others bombed out. Bodies are piling up as those doctors couldn't save are lined up in the basement, since the mortuary in the city is full to the brink. The bodies include those of infants who are grievously hurt. But the Ukrainians refuse to give up, inflicting significant damage on Russian military, targeting Russian tanks firing at shelters across the city of Mariupol. Ukrainian army also shot down a Russian chopper, valiantly fighting back and against insurmountable odds. With Rajesh Pawar and Seri Mirankov in Kyiv, Bureau Report, India Today.
And that just is the dark reality of it. As leaders talk, as the world wonders when things are going to come to an end, with each passing hour, the ruin, the devastation is piling up. Houses burnt, commercial establishments destroyed. The horrifying imagery on each passing minute shows the extensive and increasing damage of the cities of Ukraine. Take a look at this report of what this country looked like once and what it looks like today.
Captivating cathedrals, marvelous monasteries, historic monuments, and cities with grand landscapes. This was Ukraine for tourists holidaying in Europe's second largest country. Charred, engulfed in smoke, raging fire. Once brimming with life, markets, schools, and commercial establishments have now been reduced to rubble. The Russian assault on Ukraine paints a picture of massive devastation and destruction. The city of Mariupol has suffered significant damage to the urban infrastructure. The before and after images show the destruction that have been caused by the Russian troops. The residential buildings, commercial establishments destroyed beyond recognition in back-to-back attacks. In Mariupol, this drama theatre, serving as a shelter for hundreds of civilians, was bombed by Russian troops. The theatre, once home to nights of revelry and art, is now a ghost shelf of itself, with rescuers racing against time to extricate those lying under debris. Another city that has been hit the hardest is Chernihiv. After deadly attacks hit the city for weeks, the streets are filled with bodies. Horrifying images of locals carrying the injured and dead have surfaced that show the fatal aftermath of the attacks. A town in Donetsk region, Makivka, is in ruins. Residential buildings and markets are charred due to repeated shellings and missile attacks by the Russian army. Locals were seen coming together to repair the damage caused by the brutal Russian attacks. Once one of Europe's most beautiful countries, Ukraine lies in ruins. Its body battered, its spirit hurt, and soul aspiring for an end to the naked dance of aggression. Bureau Report, India Today.
And as always, with any war, with any conflict, children continue to be the biggest victims. The invasion is turning a child refugee every few seconds, according to some estimates. Data released by UNICEF recently states that around 1.5 million children have fled Ukraine with their families in the past 3 weeks. As Russia intensifies its attack on the country, there seems no end to one heartbreaking image after the other. Neighboring countries have also opened their doors to traumatized young refugees, some of them just toddlers and infants. For some, what was a normal childhood a few weeks ago has now turned into a nightmare with an uncertain future, possibly in foster care. The images on your screen come from the capital city of Kyiv, where down a dusty basement hidden from shelling, a shelter has been born for newborns of Ukraine. The place hosts 21 babies born to surrogates. Nurses are taking care of these babies as the fighting has made it impossible for their parents to reach them.
More than 200 schools, around 35 hospitals, and hundreds of residential buildings, possibly close to 2,000, have been destroyed since the war began in Ukraine. Towns and villages across the eastern half of the besieged country do not have electricity and water. And in the intense cold of the snow-covered terrain, there is no heat. Millions of ordinary Ukrainians are hiding in bunkers and shelters, shivering in the cold uncertainty of mounting loss. UNICEF has put up this appeal on their landing page on Ukraine. Children in Ukraine are facing a deadly crisis as the hostilities in their country are increasing. Like all conflicts, this is turning into a children's crisis, and they will need as much humanitarian support and help as we can provide. UNICEF says there are 7.5 million children in Ukraine, and the war poses an immediate threat to their lives and well-being. With the intensifying of indiscriminate bombing of civilian targets, lives are being lost, and some of them are children. On 7th of March, human rights sources inside Ukraine released actual numbers of children killed, 38 dead and 71 injured. The survivors are rushing to the borders, clad in their winter clothing, holding on to their mothers or elders, trusting hands clasping those of adults, making unplanned journeys to the unknown, to faraway lands where strangers try and make them feel welcome.
Just 2 days ago, we had a transport of 700 kids. And, it's not easy to find a place for anybody, but it's even tougher to find a place for 700 kids in the same one place.
As their homes and lives are torn apart by other unseen strangers, firing big guns from somewhere beyond the dreadful horizon. Natasha, a 16-year-old Ukrainian refugee from before this war even started, writes, "The war came to us and happiness is no more than a ghost from my dreams." Natasha used to live in the seaside village of Shirokne in eastern Ukraine. The last time she saw her house, she was 11. Natasha writes, "Our hearts are full of sadness. We have no home. The night is black. Every day that the war in Ukraine goes on, every day that the bombs rain from above, every time another school goes up in flames, and every bullet that takes a parent away, another Natasha's heart fills with sadness. 100 hearts sad, and the night stays black."
As Russia intensifies its attack beyond day 22, beyond 3 weeks, it's time to look at some haunting images that have convulsed the entire world. And these are the defining images that India Today has brought you from day 1. Today is day 22. Defining image number 1 on day 22. 3 people were killed, 5 wounded after shelling caused a fire at a market in the eastern Ukrainian town of Kharkiv, close to the Russian border. These images show the extent of destruction after heavy shelling by Russian positions. Fire all over, plumes of smoke and charred vehicles in this neighborhood. Defining image number 2 on day 22. Russian forces shelled a school once again in the city of Kharkiv. Damaged school buildings and damaged vehicles. No signs of human life. Trees uprooted. Piles of rubble. Scattered lumps of concrete left behind after this attack. A familiar sight in neighborhood after neighborhood in the northern city of Kharkiv. Defining image number 3 on day 22. A moment of horror caught on camera of showing heavy shelling by Russian forces in Kharkiv late last night. The shelling and bombing led to multiple explosions in the city. Several buildings and vehicles were destroyed in this particular attack. But Ukraine continues to fight back, as you can see in defining image number 4 on day 22 on your screen. Wrecked parts of a Russian aircraft which was claimed to have been shot down by Ukrainian air defense forces in the Nikolaev area. No confirmation on the pilots or whatever happened to them. Devastating scenes, meanwhile, from a hospital in Mariupol. It's the last hospital said to be standing, as others have been bombed to rubble so far. You can see bodies piled up all over the place. The dead include a large number of infants and women, claims the Ukrainian government. Defining image number 6 on day 22. Russian troops dropped a powerful bomb on a theatre in the encircled Ukrainian port city of Mariupol, where India Today has been reporting from. According to reports, more than 1,000, including women and children, were taking shelter there. The exact number of casualties is still unknown. The footage on your screen shows destruction after the theatre was bombed. Overnight shelling has wrought havoc in Kharkiv. This dramatic image on your screen shows you the moment when the city was under another attack by Russian forces. Buildings and shops on fire, huge plume of smoke on your screen after that explosive. Horrifying, defining image number 8 on day 22. Ukrainian media released this video on Wednesday, claiming Russian troops opened fire on people who were standing in line for bread in the northern Ukrainian city of Chernihiv. The video on your screen shows dead bodies lying on the ground. Ukraine's media claims at least 10 people were killed in this incident. India Today independently could not verify the authenticity of these claims. Defining image number 9 on day 22, the Russian Defense Ministry released a video on Wednesday showing armored vehicles, tanks and other military equipment, including foreign-made anti-tank missile launchers, allegedly captured by Russian troops from the Ukrainian forces. And defining image number 10 on day 22, images from the capital city Kyiv, which is currently besieged and under attack. Ukrainian people getting rescued after Russian troops attacked a residential colony. According to reports, 1 person died in this attack and 3 were injured. The emergency service department managed to evacuate 30 people from the building that was shelled by Russian forces. It's day 22 and there's no end in sight to what's happening. I'm leaving you with these images, but remember, on the other side of this break, we have a live special broadcast from Kyiv by the only journalistic team that's conducting true war reporting and bringing you this story like nobody else. And that's the reason why India Today, India's #1 channel, is the most watched channel on the world's biggest story. Big live broadcast from Kyiv next.
Crypto Watch brought to you by BitBNS.
As Russia declared war on Ukraine, as the world was plunged again into crisis, with the only Indian team in the real war zone.
This is Mariupol. You hear a series. Hear this sound.
I will show you a quick, so to say, bombshell room tour.
I can smell the gunpowder in the air.
And without pause, India Today totally dominates viewership and smashes the competition. When it's the world's biggest news story, there's only one gold